I never liked camping. The dirt, the bugs, the sleepless nights in a bag that always felt like a rock by morning. It simply wasn't built for me. But my dad, the rugged wilderness enthusiast, dragged me out every summer with his friends. By the time I hit high school, I finally convinced him to let me bring my friend Charles along, just to make the suffering bearable with a familiar face. The trip was awkward from the start. Due to a booking error, we didn't end up at some remote, peaceful spot. We landed at an overdeveloped, glorified campsite with indoor bathrooms and paved walkways. To make matters worse, right next door was a mini amusement park complete with a Ferris wheel and roller coasters. Everyone was furious, especially my dad, grumbling that this wasn't real camping. Charles was the worst, constantly teasing me about our supposed lack of wilderness knowledge, until I told him to knock it off. After dinner, and after the adults had retired, Charles got a mischievous grin. He suggested we explore the dark, closed-down amusement park. We loved climbing and sneaking around, and the thought of scaling a roller coaster was too exhilarating to resist. Well, after midnight, we grabbed our flashlights and quietly scaled the park's perimeter fence. The park was pitch black, but we could hear the faint, distant hum of security golf carts making their rounds. It felt like we were playing a tense stealth video game. We slowly crept toward the main roller coaster. Up close, it was massive. We found the maintenance stairs running alongside the ascent, and the metal rungs gave a soft clang under our sneakers as we climbed, trying to make no noise. The view from the top was incredible, but after taking a quick photo, we decided our luck was pushed far enough and started back down. On the return route, about 5 minutes from the fence line, we had to duck quickly behind a snack shack as a guard cart approached. That's when I saw the movement in the deep shadow. About 30 feet away, visible in the narrow space between two buildings, was another person crouching, just like us, as if they were also evading the guards. My heart tightened. It definitely didn't look like a teenager. As the guard cart passed, the figure suddenly darted across a patch of open ground, briefly crossing the light cast by a nearby street lamp. For a split second, I saw him clearly. He was a man, wearing tattered, dark clothing, and his stride was awkward and disfigured. But the most unsettling detail was the dark, reddish smear across his face. It looked like blood. Charles and I immediately exchanged a look of pure terror as the man ducked out of sight again. We didn't say a word, scrambling over the fence and sprinting back to our tent. The next morning, a camp staffer gathered everyone to announce that a man had been stabbed and killed the night before at a lake 4 miles away. The attacker was on the loose. The description given by the staffer, a disheveled male, possibly bleeding or with blood on his clothes, made us instantly connect the dots. It was the man we saw. We never told my dad or the authorities. We were paralyzed by the thought of getting into trouble and chose silence. Even now, years later, I kick myself for that decision. But for one terrifying night, Charles and I were mere feet away from a fugitive killer on the run. This happened back in October of 2016, right when that weird clown hysteria was all over the news. I was 16, a junior in high school, and had just finished 7th period. I hopped on the subway train heading uptown. It was a normal afternoon, but the car was mostly empty, which was unusual. I had my headphones in, music blasting, and was scrolling through chemistry flashcards on my phone. I was about as unaware as humanly possible. Never a good idea when traveling alone, but I knew the area well. The train arrived at 96th Street, my usual stop. I stood up, barely looking up because the routine was second nature. My head was still buried in my phone, and the music was still loud when I reached the doors. As soon as they slid open, I realized something was obstructing my path. I looked up and instantly froze in shock. It wasn't a normal person. It was a clown. He was in the full getup. Oversized, brightly colored clothes, giant red shoes, and an exaggerated, unnatural white mask of makeup smeared across his face with blue eyebrows and a red nose. He stood directly in the doorway, not trying to get on or off, but explicitly preventing me from exiting. I snapped out of my stunned haze and realized I had maybe 5 seconds before the doors would close. I tried to push past him, but the literal moment I made contact, he leaned down in one fluid, terrifying motion, trying to make us face to face. Before he could grab or restrain me, I sprinted past his side. As I dodged him, he lurched forward in an attempt to tackle me. I kept running, and he started chasing me. It was absolutely terrifying. There was no one else around, and I was being pursued by a killer clown. I shot a glance behind me and saw him running with this jerky, uneven stride, like his limbs were disproportionate. More chillingly, I saw what was now in his hand. It looked exactly like a kitchen knife. I ran up the stairs and out of the station without stopping. He didn't follow me onto the street, but I was still deeply shaken. I immediately reported the situation to the police. They sent an officer down to the station, but he was gone by then. For weeks, I couldn't shake the irrational thought that he knew where I lived and would track me down. It was a terrifying short encounter that proved the clown sightings weren't all just hoaxes. I was 2 years out of undergrad, taking an online graduate certificate and desperately looking for any odd job to stack some cash. Indeed was my best friend. One night, I stumbled upon a private lifeguarding job at a hotel a few towns over. It paid an unbelievable $30 an hour, but the job listing had some very strange details that caught my attention. First, the hours were backward. They wanted someone to supervise the pool from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. during the week, a late-night shift for a pool. Second, and much stranger, the requirements explicitly requested an individual who did not speak Spanish. This made zero sense to me, especially since I'm half Mexican, and the town was predominantly Spanish-speaking. Ignoring the red flags because of the pay, I decided to pretend I didn't know the language. On my first day, I was greeted by a friendly, jovial-looking manager. But as we walked in, a taller, more intense man named Jefe, whom I assumed was the one in charge, cornered me. He immediately started talking to me in Spanish, testing me. He didn't smile or greet me. He just rattled off something about the weather. I gave him a blank stare, pretending I didn't understand a single word. He and the other manager burst out laughing, saying they were just messing with me. Jefe explained they wanted a non-Spanish speaker so that rowdy outsiders couldn't harass me. My job was simple: lifeguard, collect money from non-guests, and call him if there was a problem. He added one strange rule. If anyone showed me a blue wristband, I was to let them into a huge building behind my stand he called the pool house. The first few weeks were great. I collected money, and a lot of people used the pool. Then, about a month in, the wristband people started showing up. Buff, serious men who clearly didn't speak English. They'd show the band, I'd unlock the pool house, and an hour later, they'd emerge, their bags often looking significantly fuller than when they arrived. Then I noticed the money. People entering the pool kept overpaying me by huge amounts. I called Jefe about the surplus cash, and he told me not to worry, saying people make mistakes. He hung up while I was mid-sentence. That short, abrupt phone call confirmed my fear. I was involved in something seriously illegal. The pool house was clearly where the shady operation, whether it was drug trafficking, illegal gambling, or smuggling, was happening, concealed by a locked door. Over time, I started collecting huge tips. As the wristband wearers got more comfortable with me, they started talking in front of me, in Spanish. I'd catch pieces of conversation that confirmed my worst suspicions. My moral compass was spinning, but the money was addictive. One day, while I was on my stand, my mom called. She only ever spoke Spanish, so naturally I answered and spoke Spanish to her. As I hung up and turned around, Esteban, the other manager, was standing directly in my path, glaring at me. He did not look friendly. He asked me in a cold tone how long I had known Spanish. I played dumb, claiming I was just practicing with a friend, but I knew he saw right through me. My heart raced as he debated, seemingly debating whether or not to harm me. Finally, he just said, "Okay," and turned away. A few minutes before my shift ended, he came up to me and told me to arrive an hour early the following day, as he'd have a new opportunity to offer me. He then tipped me a couple $100 and walked back into the hotel. I never returned. I drove away that night and never looked back. I still believe that look Esteban gave me meant I was really close to losing my life for exposing their secret. That new opportunity was undoubtedly a way to get rid of me, or pull me deeper into their crime. I didn't want to find out which it was.